Good evening, and welcome to a meeting of the Chesapeake School Board. A printed agenda is available in the back of the room if you wish to follow the business items we'll be discussing this evening. Roll call, Dr. Smith.
Mr. Elijah Colon.
Present.
Miss Amanda Dean.
Here.
Miss Malia Huddle.
Present.
Mr. Mike Lamonia.
Here.
Mr. Lamonia is participating remotely. Mr. John McCormick.
Here.
Mr. Norman Poole.
Here.
Mrs. Kim Scott.
Ms. Scott will be with us shortly.
Dr. Brittany Walker.
Here.
Mrs. Angie Swigert, Chair.
Here. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. Does the superintendent or any board member wish to add or delete an item from the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No items to add to the agenda, but we will need a closed session for personnel matters, student disciplinary matters, and legal matters.
I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Dr. Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Poole. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We will now go into the closed portion of our meeting. I'll ask Board Member Poole to read the language to take us into closed session.
Chair Swigert, I move the board should convene to closed session pursuant of Code Virginia Section 2.2-3711, subsection A, 1, 2, and 8, for discussion of consideration personal matters regarding employee contracts, student disciplinary matters, and consultation of legal counsel in reference to actual litigation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McCormick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We are now in closed session. Board Member Poole, would you please read the statement to bring us back into open session?
Chair Swigert, I move that the record show that the only items discussed in the closed meeting were those specifically cited in the motion to convene into the closed meeting and those lawfully exempted by the statutory meetings and the requirements.
Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Walker, or was that Dr. Walker? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
Dr. Cotton, do you have items resulting from closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a student matter motion. I recommend student number 1 be expelled under the conditions discussed.
I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McCormick. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Ms. Huddle. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with a vote of 8-1 with board member Scott abstaining.
Are there any additional items resulting from closed session? Mr. McCormick?
Yes, in regards to the appeal of the superintendent's decision pursuant to School Board Policy 921 and in reference to Student 2, I move to support the recommendation of the superintendent.
Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Walker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with a vote of 8-1 with board member, 7-1 with board member Scott abstaining.
If there are no additional items, we will move on to the invocation and the pledge to the flag. At this time, I'd like to call upon Pastor Sarah Locke from Hickory United Methodist, who will give the opening invocation. Afterward, I'll ask Della Crabtree, a 5th grader from Treacle Elementary, to join us in leading the pledge. Please stand as you are able.
Gracious and loving God, we gather here at the start of a new year, mindful of the responsibility and opportunity before us. You have called each board member here and each of us to this place with unique gifts, perspectives, and a shared commitment to serve our community. Today, we especially lift up the new members of this school board. Bless them with wisdom and courage and discernment as they step into their roles. May they feel your guidance in their decisions, your strength in their challenges, and your peace in their hearts. We pray for unity among all members of this board, Lord. Grant them the ability to listen deeply and speak thoughtfully, to work collaboratively for the good of each student, family, and educator in our district. Help them rise above differences to seek solutions that honor and uplift the whole community. Bless the students who will learn, the teachers who inspire, and the families who support them. We lift up staffs who make learning possible every day. Administrators, cafeteria workers, janitors, bus drivers, aides, and all who serve behind the scenes. May they feel valued and supported in the essential work they do. May this year be filled with growth, understanding, and hope. Guide this board to lead with integrity, respect, and a vision for a brighter future for all. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Locke, and to Della and her family and your Assistant Principal Parks for being here with us this evening. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is the reorganization of the board. I will ask the superintendent to assist with this portion of the meeting. Dr. Cotton?
Thank you, Chair Swigert. The Code of Virginia calls for each local school board in the Commonwealth at its annual meeting to elect officers. School board policy calls for the superintendent to preside during this portion of the meeting, dealing with the election of the chair and vice chair. It is my pleasure to perform that duty this evening. At the conclusion of this election, I will happily then turn the meeting over to the newly elected chair, who will continue with the reorganization of the board. To begin, I will quickly review our process for elections. Each office will be voted upon individually. We will start with the chair, then move to the vice chair. In order to be placed before the board for consideration for an office, an individual must first be nominated by a fellow board member, and the nomination must receive a second. Once all candidates for that office have been nominated, the board will vote for candidates in the order of nominations by a show of hands. Does the board have any questions about the process before we begin? Okay, seeing none, let's begin with the election of the chair. Are there any nominations for the office of chairman of the Chesapeake School Board? I see Mr. Lamonia's hand raised. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. I move to nominate Mrs. Angela Swigert to serve as chair of the school board for one more year. As the most tenured member of the board, I believe Mrs. Swigert demonstrates the leadership and professionalism required for this position, and she maintains focus on the big picture so our board can govern in the best interest of our students, staff, and families. So again, I move for the nomination of Mrs. Angela Swigert as chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lamonia. Angela Swigert has been duly nominated. Is there a second? Great. We have a second from Mr. Poole. Angie Swigert has been duly nominated and seconded for the office of chairman. Are there any other nominations? Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. I'd like to nominate Mr. McCormick for chairman due to his experience as a business owner and all the experience that it takes to run an organization, his experience with managing people and moving organizations forward, and additionally his attention to detail that he demonstrates weekly in our meetings. So I'd like to nominate him, please.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Amanda Dean. Mr. John McCormick has been duly nominated and seconded for the office of chairman. Are there any other nominations for chairman? Hearing none and without objection, nominations are now closed, and we will move on to the vote. As a reminder, we will vote in the order the nominations were received. All those in favor, we'll start with Angie Swigert. All those in favor of Angie Swigert as chairman of the Chesapeake School Board, please indicate by a show of hands. All opposed, like sign. Dr. Smith. Show of hands in support of Angie Swigert first. Mr. Lamonia has his hand raised on screen. And then all opposed.
Motion carries with a vote of 5-4, with board members Dean, Huddle, McCormick, and Walker voting in opposition.
Okay, with that in mind, let the record show that Angie Swigert has been elected as chair and will serve in this capacity through December of 2025. Congratulations, Madam Chair. Moving on to the office of Vice Chair, are there any nominations for the office of Vice Chairman of the Chesapeake School Board? Ms. Dean?
Yes, I would like to nominate Dr. Brittany Walker. I believe she brings a unique asset to this board, given her experience in the school system. I also think she's a great leader of people. And I personally believe, we have 9 people on this board. We all got here the same way by being elected by the people. And so I think it's good to have different people in these chairs as we go throughout the years to gain different perspectives. So again, I nominate Dr. Brittany Walker.
Thank you. Dr. Walker has been nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, John McCormick seconded. Dr. Brittany Walker has been duly nominated and seconded for the role of Vice Chairman. Are there any other nominations for the office of Vice Chairman? Madam Chair.
I'd like to nominate Kim Scott for the office of Vice Chair. And over the last 2 years, I have come to truly appreciate her passionate but thoughtful and strategic approach to solving problems. And I believe her drive to be a consensus builder and overall demeanor will be strong assets in helping the board navigate the challenges and opportunities that we encounter.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Cologne.
Yes, sir. I nominate Kim Scott. I believe a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. I think you can do that.
Thank you. Mrs. Kim Scott has been duly nominated and seconded for the office of Vice Chairman. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none and without objection, nominations are now closed, and we will move on to the vote in the order they were received. At this time, all of those in favor of Dr. Brittany Walker as Vice Chairman of the Chesapeake School Board, please indicate by a show of hands. All those opposed, like sign. Mr. Lamoni has his hand raised. Dr. Smith.
Motion fails with a vote of 4 to 5, with board members Cologne, Lamonia, Poole, Scott, and Swigert voting in opposition.
Okay, with that, at this time, all those in favor of Mrs. Kim Scott serving as Vice Chair of the Chesapeake School Board, please indicate by a show of hands. All those opposed, like sign. Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with a vote of 5 to 4, with board members Dean, Huddle, McCormick, and Walker voting in opposition.
Okay, let the record show that Mrs. Kim Scott has been elected as Vice Chair and will serve in this capacity through December of 2025. Congratulations to our Vice Chair, Kim Scott. Now with that, we'll take a brief recess to reorganize the seating and turn the meeting over to the elected chair. I'm more than happy to give up that duty at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. To continue the reorganization, I will entertain a motion for the appointments of clerk, deputy clerk, agent, and deputy agent. Ms. Scott?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to appoint Dr. Angela Smith, clerk, Mrs. Darlene Gorman, deputy clerk, Dr. Jared Cotton, fiscal agent, and Mrs. Melissa Glod, deputy fiscal agent.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McCormick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith?
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
Congratulations to the four of you. There being no awards and recognitions this evening, we will move on to the public participation portion of the meeting. Tonight, we have two opportunities for public comment. We will begin with the public hearing for the proposed plan for the establishment of new attendance zones to include the new Crestwood Elementary School and B.M. Williams Elementary School. Dr. Smith, are there any citizens who have requested time to speak under the public hearing section this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, under public hearing, we have 3 citizens signed up to speak.
Thank you. I want to thank the speakers who have signed up to address the board this evening. There are 2 ways that citizens can request time to speak at our meetings. You can call the clerk's office before 12 noon the day of the meeting, or sign up to speak prior to the start of the meeting. All in-person requests to speak must be submitted to the deputy clerk 5 minutes prior to the published meeting start time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Once your allotted time is over, we ask that you promptly exit the podium. You may choose to sit in the boardroom if seats are available, but standing or sitting on the floor will not be permitted, and you may not block the exit doors. We would also like to ask that you refrain from any behavior that disrupts the meeting, including the use of profanity, applause, cheering, or jeering. Dr. Smith, please call the first speaker.
Speaker number 1 for the public hearing. Would you please approach the podium? Speakers are called in numerical order and asked to state their name and city of residence before they begin.
Alice Frazier, Suffolk, employee of Chesapeake Public Schools. I'm concerned about the process used to determine attendance zones for B.M. Williams. The data presented in the last board meeting was not accurate, reflecting the current student population. When the 115 preschool students on our campus are included, actually I think it's 116 now, the new proposal attendance zones would have B.M. Williams at 107 to 114% capacity, not the 91 to 98% that's listed on the charts. Even if you only include the preschool program that's inside our building using 4 of our classrooms, it would still put us over capacity. Preschool programs impact the resources and capacity of our existing building. I sent you a long list of some of the resources. That was not extensive, but a long list of resources that those students use as well. We are asking to no longer be overcrowded with insufficient support for the students and staff. It's crucial that accurate enrollment numbers, including those from preschool programs, are considered when making a decision about our new attendance zones. In our recent board meeting, it was acknowledged that our students at B.M. Williams are currently experiencing inadequate space and resources. It was said that the facility does not have the necessary specialty and support spaces required to meet the diverse program needs of our students. Despite a building addition and proposed adjustments to attendance zones, it's disheartening to contemplate that B.M. Williams will still be over capacity and not be adequately equipped to change to a pre-K through 5th grade program. This raises the important question of our facility's ability to accommodate our current and future student populations. Paint and furniture will be fresh and nice, but the staff at B.M. Williams are concerned about the space and the practical needs of the pre-K through 5th grade population. I understand at our next faculty meeting that we'll be getting information about some of the changes or upgrades that might be happening. I hope that that includes bathrooms, gymnasium, a basketball court for our older students, for recess, covering exposed pipes, fixing leaks, replacing ceiling tiles. We will have larger students in larger numbers needing larger equipment for resources such as music, art, library, and PE. These concerns demand our attention and thoughtful consideration when deciding these attendance zones. I urge you to revisit the methodology used in determining the zones and to ensure that it reflects the entire student population. This is such a great opportunity to not only bring a beautiful, modern, efficient building to half of the community, but finally bring B.M. Williams Primary to a tenable capacity and modernize it enough to properly house pre-K through 5th grade students. This will promote a more equitable distribution of resources and ensure that all students have access to the optimal educational opportunities that Chesapeake promotes and that we prefer for our students.
Public hearing speaker number 2, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before your comments begin.
Lynn Bell, Chesapeake. Good evening, members of the school board. Before the vote is made on which attendance zones to draw between Crestwood Elementary and B.M. Williams Elementary, I would like to speak to you from the perspective of a B.M. Williams CPI teacher and a parent of former B.M. Williams students. The numbers that were stated in the last board meeting left out the 116 preschool students, which make up 14% of our student population. I was shocked and disappointed when I discovered that my students didn't seem to matter when making such a huge decision that impacts the entire school. Do the 115 students not matter? Now 116. Do the 17 teachers and TAs not matter? Do the increased duties of our administrators related to preschool classes not matter? Do the additional duties of our office staff for preschool students not matter? Does the support of our custodian, of our counselors and various therapists provide preschool students not matter? Does the additional care our school nurse gives to preschool students not matter? Does it not matter that the custodial staff has to clean an additional 8 classrooms that have not been considered? Does the additional breakfast and lunch the cafeteria has to make for preschool students not matter? Does the fact that the preschool teachers all have to use the one copier we have and other supplies not matter? Does the technology support and training for preschool classes by our one TIS not matter? Does it not matter that our security staff has to walk late preschool students to class and monitor the safety of these additional 4 classrooms in the building and 4 outside and portables not matter? We have a high number of preschool students that are dropped off and picked up each day. Do the additional staff needed to ensure the safety of all these preschoolers not matter? Does it not matter that the preschool students participate in assemblies, parades, military activities, celebrations, PTA meetings, and family nights? Does it not matter that the preschool students use donations of clothes, food, and school supplies? Preschool students have outside recess twice a day, every day. Does it not matter that the more classes there are, their time will be restricted on playgrounds, especially once there will be 3rd through 5th grade? Members of the school board, I hope that you see that our preschool students do matter. Your numbers and percentages on your options must be changed to reflect this. Alice Frazier emailed you all last week with a new graphic showing how adding the additional 115 preschool students affects our building capacity. Option 3 still puts us at 107% capacity. Option 1 brings us to 110% capacity, and option 2 brings us to 114% capacity. I insist that you must use these revised numbers to make your decision. A brand new school has been built for Crestwood Elementary, whereas B.M. Williams is almost 70 years old. Is it justifiable to prioritize capacity in the modern facility while leaving all the students of B.M. Williams in an overcrowded, outdated, and deteriorating school environment?
Public hearing speaker number 3, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
State my name and the city I live in?
Correct.
All right. I'm Jimmy Schutte, Virginia Beach. Hi, everybody. I've been working at B.M. Williams since the Cretaceous time period. Ditto everything they said. In 2019, a study justified replacing Crestwood Intermediate, an architectural study, and called for a major modernization addition to the Crestwood situation of B.M. Williams. And in the 2019 capital improvement plan, there was design work scheduled to start in 2026 and 27. That project has been scrapped. To be fair, B.M. Williams is getting new furniture and we're getting new toilets, but our office, clinic, cafeteria, gymatorium, built in 1955 for 400 to 500 students, remains unchanged. CWI gets replaced. B.M. Williams modernization gets erased. In 2019, students at B.M. Williams Primary, including CPI, were counted in the capital improvement plan to justify building a new school in our zone on Clearfield Avenue. But in 2025, the planning department reports our enrollment is 736. That's only our K-2 students. This excludes the 42 early childhood education students. This excludes the 72 CPI students housed in portables. The Virginia Department of Education includes our entire enrollment in our school quality profile. It's on the VDOA website. Our Synergy student information system that we use every day includes the 840 kids we have in our system. The planning department does not. In 2019, the planning department included all students to justify a new school. In 2025, CWI gets replaced. B.M. Williams students get erased. What's the message here? Every student matters except when it's inconvenient for rezoning. The strain on parking, administration, security, guidance, playgrounds, medical staff is real, regardless of where the students are housed. Please do the right thing. I mean, you're an elected body here to represent your constituents, I guess, which was only 13,000 people that voted for the rest of you. It's a small school. I don't know if you represent our students or our staff. We're about to find out. Balance enrollment fairly, count all the students. Option 3 is not ideal. It's the least worst option. You should revisit probably the whole rezoning prospect. I don't think that's going to happen. Planning for the future starts with being honest about the present. Our guidance for rezoning, carefully consider capacity. Somewhere down here, leave room for development. These are not compatible concerns. If you really care about capacity, let City Council carefully consider approving development to make sure we have enough room in schools for them. Please do the right thing.
This concludes our speakers under the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Thank you for sharing your comments. We will now move on to the hearing of citizens. During their allotted time, speakers should observe our rules of decorum and know that expressions of concerns and criticism on matters of school policy and operations is welcome. And while speakers' own comments are welcome, they may not play pre-recorded messages. Dr. Smith, are there any citizens who requested time to speak under the hearing of citizens section this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 5 citizens signed up to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Please call the first speaker.
Speaker number 1, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Vic Nichols, Chesapeake. 4 items. We got electric buses in 2021. What temps can they withstand before they start having issues with starting and working in extreme cold? Do we have adequate charging stations? What is the risk assessment on battery failure and fires for buses? 2, Seeing Gender by Iris Gottlieb teaches kids to trade sex in order to obtain gender-altering hormones. It was in a middle school in another city. Is it in ours? 3, there are 2 things I believe we could do to help our teachers. 1, HB 1577 was assigned to CCT sub 3, which is code for cities, counties, and towns, subcommittee 3 in the General Assembly. Delegate Williams, who is the patron, has 2 preschool children. It creates electronic reporting requirements for localities, including state agency requirements, and an unfunded mandate review task force is created. Can we support this for all the unfunded mandates that our teachers have to sit there and work over for? Last one, an Independence middle school teacher was physically abused recently. A music teacher at Bird Neck Elementary got kicked by students and had horrible bruises and was told to keep quiet or she wouldn't have a job. The board must show 0 tolerance for this type of behavior. And I think those 2 things would go over well with our teachers. Thank you.
Speaker number 2, it's your turn at the podium. Speaker number 2, under hearing of citizens. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Good afternoon or good evening. I'm Melinda Gaynor and I am from the city of Chesapeake. Also, I am the CEO of the Chesapeake Pearls Incorporated, and we are affiliated with the Omicron Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Wednesday, Alpha Kappa Alpha will celebrate 117 years of existence. The Chesapeake chapter celebrated 40 years this past December. During our 2024 year, We provided $14,000 in scholarships to high school students, from 5 of the 7 high schools. We hosted events for over 100 elementary and middle school girls within the city by sponsoring time with them as they discovered their emotions. We had mental health professionals provided by the chapter, and a hearty discussion took place as we hosted a movie time with these girls for Inside Out. This year, to begin our care for the elementary and middle school girls, as they experience probably one of the most difficult times, we are donating to the City of Chesapeake 500 pretty pink packages. And through the context, you can imagine what this is for, but each has a note that says, "For you, the timing of this could have been better, but this is an exciting new chapter for you. Remember, it's normal and natural. Hashtag you got this." So every girl who may have a difficult day will receive a package. These will be donated to her schools, where she'll have a note from our members, the necessary supplies, and of course, some Starburst candy. This year, we are extremely proud to announce that we have received over 50 applicants that encompass all of the 7 high schools for our scholarship. And this year, we will give an overwhelmingly proud amount of $30,000 to students within the Chesapeake Public School System. So February 8th at the Renaissance Hotel, our awardees will be honored at our annual Black History Month Scholarship Gala, and we invite all of the members of the school board, or as many who can attend, to this opportunity to see your scholars awarded. These updates are just the beginning of our services for 2025 for 2025 for the year with our Chesapeake Public School partners. Thank you.
Speaker number 3, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Hi, Lynn Davidson, Chesapeake. To paraphrase a Pink Floyd song, hey, school board and administration, show your teachers you care. All in all, you treat them like another brick in the wall. The weekend before winter break, a student at Oscar Smith High was killed in a gang-related shooting. Tensions were unusually high. There were at least 6 fights between Monday and Wednesday. A bomb threat was called in. One student who spoke about another student was jumped by a dozen students. You were willing to let Hickory High go virtual for a daggone country concert. Why didn't you do so when tensions at Oscar Smith were so high? The teachers were truly terrified and exhausted. They are not another brick in the wall. At Carver, students and teachers have witnessed crime scene tape being put around a body that lay on the ground. This has traumatized teachers and students. Members of school administration have come to the school for debriefings, yet nothing has changed as far as safety. There are coverings that don't allow residents of South Norfolk to look into classrooms, but the people in the classrooms are able to see out. Imagine your child seeing SWAT teams from their classrooms or joint spaces. Those teachers want to go home to their own children. The students and staff at Carver are not more bricks in the wall. My daughter has 13 state employees who work for her. I asked her if she makes her employees sign in and out at work. Her response, no, they're salaried. At least she doesn't treat them like they're a brick in the wall. Why are teachers having to sign in and out? When I was still teaching, I always got to school early and always stayed later. I mean, always. I also did much schoolwork at home. I can remember telling my husband a few weeks before I retired, this is the last set of essays I'll have to grade at the kitchen table. How many teachers do you think are doing the same? My money is on most, especially those who have limited planning bills like primary, elementary, and art, PE, and music teachers. How and when do you think special education teachers have time to write and update IEPs? Those teachers are not bricks in the wall. Treat them with the respect they deserve. Shockingly, no reading specialist nor classroom teacher was selected to be on the district literacy plan writing committee. I guess you considered them to be bricks in the wall. No, I know you did. You know, I always disliked the Pink Floyd song, Another Brick in the Wall. The lyrics say, hey, teachers, you're just another brick in the wall. Your teachers are not another brick in the wall.
Speaker number 4, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Mindy Cahill, Chesapeake. Good evening. I am a recently retired teacher, so I understand the challenges educators face daily. Tonight, I am bringing forth concerns that have been shared with me by Chesapeake Public School staff who are deeply affected by decisions affected by decisions made in this room, First, let's talk about teacher assistants and substitutes. These individuals are essential to our school's success. They support teachers, work directly with students, and ensure the classrooms run smoothly, yet they are paid less than many Walmart employees. How can we expect to attract and retain skilled professionals under these conditions? Low pay leads to high turnover and difficulty filling positions, directly impacting the quality of education. It's time to offer these vital staff members a living wage that reflects their invaluable contributions. Elementary teachers have voiced overwhelming frustration with the Wonders reading program. It's too scripted, too cumbersome to navigate, and most concerning, it is detested by students. Reading should spark imagination and joy, not feel like a tedious chore. A vital component of reading instruction has been removed from the curriculum, that is read-alouds and novel studies. Except for the short stories and Wonders, which I'm told leave much to be desired, reading aloud to students during the ELA block is forbidden and can only be done outside of that scheduled time, but that scheduled time doesn't really exist in our schedule. Any reading teacher worth their salt knows how vital it is to read to our students. Special education teachers are very concerned because Wonders does not incorporate the specialized techniques needed by their struggling readers. Alarmingly, teachers have actually been warned that deviating from the Wonders program can result in termination. This scripted program undermines their professional autonomy and completely disregards their expertise. Teachers need the flexibility to adapt materials to meet their students' needs, and students deserve a program that engages and excites them about reading, and Wonders is falling short of these goals. Speaking from experience, I can tell you that these issues aren't minor, they're fundamental. Fair pay for teachers, assistants, and substitutes, and an engaging and adaptable reading program are changes that will make a meaningful difference in our schools. I urge you to take action on these concerns. Invest in the people and tools that make our schools thrive. Our teachers, staff, and students deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Speaker number 5, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
It's like a cheat code. You can sign up for both. I didn't know. I was going to talk at James Schutte, Virginia Beach. I was going to talk about school rezoning again, and then one of my former colleague was talking about TA pay. And I feel remiss in not having come up here and talk to you guys about TA pay. I'll take everything back about BM Williams. Don't give us a gym. Don't give us new furniture. Don't give us anything. The living wage comment about TAs, they are the unsung heroes of our school division. And I know a lot of TAs personally that are friends of mine, families of mine. They work multiple jobs. They come to work all day, and they go to work after school and work at their other jobs all night. It's a woefully undercompensated position in our division, and I'd gladly turn in all the new buildings and everything for adequate TA compensation pay. Thank you.
This concludes our speakers for this evening.
Thank you for sharing your comments. Our practice is to receive information. However, we do not usually engage in dialogue, and that is our intent tonight. If appropriate and not already provided, someone from the superintendent staff will evaluate your concern and provide a response. We will now consider the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Poole. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
We will now move to the information agenda. The first item is the governor's budget update. Over to you, Ms. Glod.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. This evening, I'm pleased to introduce Charity Zelmer, our new Director of Budget, who will present the Governor's budget update. Mrs. Zelmer comes to us from Virginia Beach City Public Schools, where she served most recently as Budget Coordinator. She has a wealth of experience in school finance. We are pleased to leverage her leadership and budget experience at Chesapeake Public Schools. I will now turn the floor over to Mrs. Zelmer.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening, Chair Swigert, Vice Chair Scott, and school board members. Tonight, I will begin with an overview of the state budget process, followed by a summary of the proposed revisions to the fiscal year 24-25 budget and the proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26. On December 18th, Governor Youngkin released his proposed amendments to the biennial budget. Last Tuesday, the Virginia Department of Education published its calculation templates, which are critical for estimating our projected revenues. This presentation will provide a general overview of these proposed changes. I will first begin with a quick overview of the state budget process. Virginia operates on a biennial budget process, which is updated every year. Each December, the governor presents a budget proposal to the General Assembly for review. In the first year of the two-year budget, the governor proposes the initial plan. In the second year, the focus shifts to making updates and adjustments. Examples of these updates include technical changes and proposed policy changes. Right now, we are in the second year of the biennial budget process. The governor's proposal is reviewed by the Senate and the House of Delegates, who can accept, revise, or add to it. Once they agree, the governor reviews it again and either approves it or makes further changes for review. This process continues until everyone reaches an agreement. As mentioned earlier, Governor Youngkin presented his proposed amendments to the biennial budget on December 18th. To summarize his economic outlook, the general fund has a large surplus thanks to a healthy economy. Job and wage growth are driving increases in withholdings. More people are moving to Virginia than out of Virginia, which increases revenue collections. Economic indicators support a positive economic outlook. This favorable outlook supports his proposed amendments. As a reminder, the original biennial budget is based on a revenue forecast as of December 2023. Now I will provide an overview of the proposed amendments. The most significant increases to public education funding are tied to technical adjustments. These include updated data for English learners, revised sales tax revenue projections, and average daily membership estimates based on actual fall enrollment. Additional support is also allocated for school construction through competitive grants. Proposed funding for school resource and security officers is expected to be provided through a grant fund managed by the Department of Criminal Justice. Now let's take a look at how these updates impact the operating budget for our current fiscal year. Total state revenue is projected to increase $7.7 million, or 2%, from appropriated operating revenue. As previously mentioned, the most significant increases are tied to technical adjustments. Now let's review the governor's proposed FY 25-26 budget for Chesapeake. Since the initial release of this presentation in board docs, we have updated our ADM projection to 39,900. This update takes into account the state's ADM projection and fall enrollment data. Our current projected ADM for fiscal year 25-26 is 39,900, reflecting an increase of 448 students compared to the fiscal year 24-25 budget. The estimated state revenue for the upcoming budget is $370.8 million, reflecting a $15.7 million or 4% increase compared to the current year's appropriated budget. In addition to increased sales tax revenue, the year-over-year growth is primarily driven by additional support for compensation and the favorable impact of technical updates on programs such as special education and English language learners. With the release of the governor's proposed budget, The House of Delegates and the Senate will now review and amend it during the General Assembly session, which began on January 8th and is expected to conclude on February 22nd. It is important to note that the governor's budget proposal is not final and may undergo changes. At Chesapeake, our next steps are to finalize the superintendent's proposed 25-26 operating, categorical, and special funds budgets. These will be presented to you all on February 10th. Thank you for your time this evening, and we're happy to take any questions you may have.
I don't see any questions at this time, so thank you, Ms. Zelmer.
Thank you.
We look forward to the presentation coming soon.
Thank you.
The next item on the information agenda is the Regional Recovery School update. Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. Tonight I would like to introduce, I'm not going to do it this time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Paul Wilson. He is the Director of Student Support Services. And Mr. Wilson will provide a presentation and update on Harbor Hope Center, which is the Region 2 Recovery School. As you know from our previous meetings, progress is being done on establishing a regional recovery school for students who are suffering from drug and alcohol addiction. At this time, I will introduce Mr. Paul Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Good evening, Chair Swigert, Vice Chair Scott, board members, Dr. Cotton, and Superintendent's Cabinet. This evening, I will present to you a proposal for a Region 2 Recovery School, Harbor Hope Center, named to symbolize the safety of a harbor and the hope for recovery for each Region 2 student that will attend. The proposal is a culmination of the work of a regional steering committee comprised of leadership from 5 Region 2 Tidewater school divisions who identified the emerging need for a recovery school and committed to exploring a regional approach to meet said needs. These divisions include Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and Virginia Beach. My presentation this evening will provide a broad overview that demonstrates the work of the steering committee to this point. Because this presentation is broad and focuses less on what was covered in our November information meeting, I would like to mention that the full presentation by Dr. Miller on the operational aspects of the Regional 2 Recovery School can be found in the November 18th agenda on board docs. Our hope tonight is to provide additional details through this proposal, but please note that more specific details have been provided to you in the actual board program proposal document, which you received earlier. Please note we're not requesting action on tonight's presentation. This is only being presented as information at this time. So with that being said, let's get started. Allow me to begin with the big picture, a general overview of where we have been and where we will go given your approval and the approval of the remaining 4 participating Region 2 school boards. It is worth noting that the General Assembly funds appropriated for a regional recovery school were earmarked and approved based upon Governor Glenn Youngkin's support and advocacy of each region in the Commonwealth of Virginia creating a recovery school. To that end, the first point on the timeline, August to October, we're using General Assembly funds from our Year 1 planning grant. A regional steering committee was formed to begin planning. The steering committee met each month thereafter to coalesce around all elements of planning Harbor Hope Center. You'll also see note of the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority, or VOAA. This term is used in the language of the General Assembly, which advised schools to seek VOAA funding to further support the recovery school. The second segment, below the line, is what I'm doing this evening, presenting for information, and some of what I'm reporting tonight may sound familiar to most of you, as comprehensive updates were provided in a presentation by Dr. Miller to the board in November. I will summarize those salient points from the presentation in the next few slides to establish a baseline for the proposal, and then focus on the updates the steering committee has completed since that time. The third point on the timeline before you, February, is contingent upon board approvals from the 5 participating school divisions. If approved, participating superintendents will hire a program coordinator to continue the detailed planning of opening a recovery school. In the fourth timeline point, below the line, March to May, additional hiring of clinical staff by Chesapeake Integrated Behavioral Health occurs. And in June, the fifth timeline point above the line, a teacher and teacher assistant will be hired as the final planning for an August opening occurs. The formal recovery school proposal you received provided research which supports the recovery school concept and provides a rationale for a recovery school among the 5 participating cities. You will recall this graphic from the November presentation, where you will see by school division a compilation of 23-24 discipline data on drug and alcohol-related referrals. Data from the 5 school divisions' drug and alcohol discipline offenses offer a source of information about the extent of substance abuse that occurs within secondary schools in the region. During the 23-24 school year, school discipline data revealed 1,111 offenses of alcohol and/or drugs that were addressed by secondary schools in the 5 participating school divisions within Region 2. The interactive map, compiling research from Virginia Commonwealth University, was also in our November meeting. It illustrates the impact of opioid epidemic on Virginia localities. Impact is measured by lost labor, healthcare, and crime. The per capita figure shows costs per person divided by the total population. As you can see, the per capita amount for the annual economic burden of opioids in the city of Chesapeake is $500 per person. Our next 3 slides will provide a brief summary of work completed to this point by the steering committee. Over the past several months, the committee has met to establish the operational framework for the Regional Recovery School, including the creation of the center's purpose and mission statement, a program description, program goals, and objectives. A more detailed overview of each of these items is found in your full board proposal, and they are aligned with the vision that Harbor Hope be a full-day center that has voluntary enrollment for those students with substance abuse disorders that are committed to recovery in Region 2. It is important to emphasize that the Region 2 Recovery School is not an alternative placement, as recovery is a process that cannot be mandated and readiness for such is key. Though school board hearing committees and courts may refer a family to the recovery school, they cannot place a student at the center. The steering committee has also been instrumental in the creation of 6 positions unique to Harbor Hope Center, to include 4 academic positions and 2 clinical positions that will be evaluated and overseen by CBIH. It is worth noting that a hallmark of this program is the inclusion of daily therapeutic services and family wraparound support, acknowledging the importance of the holistic approach needed to assist those students who are committed to recovery. Finally, the primary mode of instruction will be delivered through Imagine Learning, a state-approved multi-division online learning platform that allows students to take up to 8 courses in a year. Students can take advantage of credit recovery for acceleration or take advantage of the GED program if their academic progress and age demonstrate they are unlikely to achieve a standard diploma. The Harbor Hope Center will operate on a modified year-round schedule following the traditional calendar during the school year, while continuing academic and clinical services remotely in summer months. Since, if approved, Chesapeake Public Schools would serve as the host for the Region 2 Recovery School, Harbor Hope would follow the academic calendar of CPS. Finally, be reminded that the hallmark of this program is students making both academic and therapeutic progress. And as such, the daily schedule allows for schedule intervals for individual and group counseling and the required academic components for students to stay on track to complete high school, either after returning to their home school after successful reintegration or through the Harbor Hope Center. Here is a look at the tentative daily schedule. It's based on the daily operational hours for the recovery school, 9:15 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. with a 45-minute rolling start and departure to accommodate the transportation limitations of 5 cities. You will also notice each of the therapeutic and academic components I mentioned on our last slide are included in this proposed daily schedule. Harbor Hope Center is a school of choice. Choosing to attend will require students and parents, for accountability purposes and program integrity, to agree to submit to random and ongoing drug and alcohol testing performed at the school site by trained clinical staff. What you see here is a policy statement, and students must comply with all procedures and protocols established by the school. A student's failure to submit to a drug test or to comply with all procedures and protocols is a violation of this policy and may result in consequences up to and including removal from the program. The next few slides address budget. The first is a snapshot of the projected program costs and revenue sources for the first year of operation. The chief costs for any school are personnel costs. Additional costs outside of personnel fall under professional development, instructional programming, including the online MOP, and instructional materials, including Chromebooks, and lastly, administrative and operational costs to include drug screening resources, staff technology, materials, and supplies. Projected first-year expenses total $708,406. You'll also note the asterisk at the bottom, which notes transportation costs will be the responsibility of each city and thus are not included in the regional budget. On the revenue side, I hope you're pleased to see that the projected revenue for year one, $849,326, is projected to exceed the year one cost of operation. The budgetary bottom line is this: except for the cost of transporting students from each city, school divisions will incur no additional costs. This is possible because of funds made available from the General Assembly, opioid abatement funds secured by 4 Region 2 cities, and one-time funding provided by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. In short, if approved, Harbor Hope Center will operate with a surplus of $140,920 in year one of operation. The Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority has earmarked funds for cities that have projects with a clear nexus to opioids. This slide shows one type of abatement funding, direct funds, in the amount of $20,000 from 4 of the 5 cities for a total of $80,000 this fiscal year, and $40,000 from the same 4 cities for an additional 5 years for an additional cost of $800,000 through fiscal year 2030. You may notice the exclusion in this slide of Chesapeake Public Schools. CPS is serving as the host city if approved, and it will be providing an in-kind contribution with a facility, with a little bit more on that to follow. And there's still a third type of source of opioid abatement funding, which is actively being pursued, which we will look at now. Unlike VOAA direct funds or individual grants secured from localities, a coordinated partnership grant is a VOAA funding set aside at the state level for competitive grants. As is suggested in the name, the grant is a partnership between 2 or more cities. For Harbor Hope Center, the partnership grant will be submitted on behalf of the 5 school systems involved in this Region 2 recovery school. The required matching funds will come from the direct funds shown in the slide prior. The grant will be submitted in the coming months and will be reviewed in May and seeks a large grant award to again minimize school division contributions and bolster the $160,000 annually in direct VOAA funds for the next 5 years. The requirements and key information for a coordinated partnership grant are included on this slide. We'll know the results of this grant in May, but with or without, a share funding formula for year 2 and beyond has been developed. It is very similar to the funding formula used for CSEP. While year 1 expenses and revenue have been projected and will require each division to pay only division's individual transportation costs, moving forward, a foundational level shared formula has been developed to project and budget annual costs. The funding formula notably accounts for the size of each division with a commensurate number of seats allotted, but also accounts for the fluid enrollment of a recovery school. You may ask why a foundational level shared formula. First, to account for the size of each division and the number of students that each may serve. Here you'll note the percent of total high school population each division represents. As you can see, Chesapeake represents 27% of total high school population for the 5 participating Region 2 schools. The foundational level is established to ensure annual operating costs are funded and shared based upon the percent of total enrollment. The total number of seats is estimated at 30, hypothetically increased from 5 from year 1's total of 25. So by each school division contributing funds to cover the costs for the respective number of seats, the Harbor Hope Center can operate with a daily capacity of 30 in year 2. In this scenario for year 2 shared funding, I present a likely revenue version wherein the assumption is Harbor Hope Center receives the guaranteed VOAA direct funds in the amount of $160,000 with additional revenue from the General Assembly and Opioid Abatement Authority. This budget forecasts $200,000 from a VOAA coordinated partnership grant and $150,000 in General Assembly sustainability funds. all of which are applied to the operating costs of $708,000 rounded. Subtracted from those costs, the cost for operation for year 2 in this more probable projection is $198,000. The total number of seats remains at 30 for $6,600 per seat. While difficult to quantify and several points factor into quantifying, Chesapeake Public Schools has agreed to the sum of $30,000 annually for their in-kind contribution. So in this example, our division would pay $22,800, which includes a credit to Chesapeake of $30,000 for the in-kind contribution. And when we include transportation, the total would be $32,980 for a minimum of 8 seats at the Harbor Hope Center. The regional approach to a recovery school has proven beneficial in sharing resources and costs. It is unlikely that a single division would have the resources to provide the recovery school model for its students. The steering committee looks for this proposal to be added to the action agenda on January 30th for a vote for approval. Here's what happens next. You'll see on this slide 2 courses of action which will be taken. I'll give you just a moment to read it before wrapping up our presentation. Today, we have brought to you the best work of months of planning of the Regional Steering Committee, but more importantly, we bring to you the hopes of educators, parents, community agencies, Region 2 leadership, and government officials from the General Assembly to our governor. More than 40 recovery schools exist across the nation, and we hope that Harbor Hope Center will be among the growing number. I'm prepared to take your questions today and confident that the written proposal and this presentation have given you the information we need for action at our next board meeting on January 30th. Happy to take your questions at this time.
I don't see any questions at this time, Mr. Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item on the information agenda this evening is the work session for the proposed plan for the establishment of new attendance zones for Crestwood Elementary School and B.M. Williams Elementary School. Ms. Stutz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight was the first public hearing for the attendance zone adjustment between the new Crestwood Elementary School and B.M. Williams Elementary School, which we know will be converting both to K-5. This evening, as you indicated, we'll have a work session. We'll do a brief recap of the first presentation that was on the 9th, since we've had a little bit of a break. And then Mr. Pope will also address some of the concerns that the board had at that meeting. Alex?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the second presentation for our proposed plan for the establishment of new attendance zones to facilitate the new Crestwood Elementary School under construction to replace the intermediate school, as well as B.M. Williams Elementary School, which is currently the primary school. As you know, on December 9th at our last board meeting, staff presented our plan for 3 different options to divide what is currently a shared attendance zone between B.M. Williams Primary and Crestwood Intermediate Schools. And this is to accommodate both schools converting to K-5 upon the opening of the new elementary school. So tonight I'm going to summarize the options that we presented at the last meeting and reiterate staff's recommendation moving forward. Also, we want to address some of the issues that were raised by you at the last meeting and then provide you with an updated timeline for going forward from here. So this is our current zone. We have B.M. Williams Primary School on the east side here on Battlefield Boulevard North, and Crestwood Intermediate School on the west side near Great Bridge Boulevard. And again, 100% of the students in this light blue zone attend both schools, K2 at B.M. Williams Primary School, and then they move up for grades 3 through 5 at Crestwood Intermediate School. And that'll no longer be the case now that we're converting to K-5. Each student will go to one or the other. So this is our visual summary of our 3 drawn lines. Option 1 is a nice north-south line right along the Chesapeake Expressway. Option 2, we have a little carve out on the southern portion there where the line follows the expressway until crossing Battlefield Boulevard North, at which point it turns south until the Intracoastal Waterway. And the primary benefit to this is mitigating a minor traffic issue that transportation pointed out to us with option 1. Option 3 also follows the expressway until intersecting with Kempsville Road, at which point it turns northeast along the center line of Kempsville Road, meaning that entire southern portion of the zone will now shift to the Crestwood Elementary School side. And highlighting the 3 lines here. All right, so here's the enrollment numbers for those 3 options. Option 1 is our median option. Again, that was the central line with no east-west deviation. That's why obviously it's the middle option for the 3 proposed here. Under this option, we'll still be able to get rid of about half of our portables at B.M. Williams Elementary School while leaving some space for enrollment growth at the new Crestwood Elementary School, which is good because most of the potential residential development in that area is on the Crestwood Elementary School side. Option 2, this is the one to alleviate that traffic issue. On this option, however, we provide the least amount of enrollment relief to B.M. Williams Elementary School. To be clear, we will still be providing some relief. It will lower the enrollment. It just lowers the enrollment less than the other 2 options. Option 3 is where we put that whole southern portion of the existing zone into the Crestwood Elementary School side. In this option, we leave a little bit less room for growth at the new school. However, we get to provide the largest amount of enrollment relief to B.M. Williams Elementary School. And staff's recommendation was option 1. It's a nice, clear geographic border that always helps to eliminate confusion with parents wondering where their where their children are going to attend school. We also get to reduce the number of portables at B.M. Williams by about half, and that still leaves space to accommodate, again, the greatest amount of potential residential development in that area with the associated enrollment growth for Crestwood Elementary School. And we also wanted to point out, while this is the recommendation, all of these 3 options are pretty solid options. That was by intent to make sure we're giving you 3 good options that they all have their pros and cons, and so none of these would be a bad choice to move forward with. Again, we wanted to address the concerns that you brought up at the last meeting, primarily the Chesapeake Preschool Initiative. So that's the program at B.M. Williams Elementary, or currently B.M. Williams Primary School, and that has the 4 portables that were specially outfitted for that program. To clarify, I was misspoken in the last presentation. The CPI students are not included in the enrollment numbers that we provided. The other preschool students in the building are included, but the CPI students are not included. And the reasoning for that is that the state of Virginia doesn't recognize that as part of our official enrollment. It's a separate grant program that's separate from our regular enrollments. And because of that, any official enrollment calculation, like the city's LOS policy, when we do impact statements, we don't include CPI because they're not actually part of our official enrollment numbers. And that is the same thing for when we do a rezoning. That's not to say that we don't take into account the burden that they put on the buildings themselves. We still recognize the fact that they make use of the facility inside and the resources that are provided. They still eat lunch in the cafeteria. They use the gym class, the library, regular teaching staff, as well as any related resource staff, materials that they would need for those classrooms. That's all still taken into account. It's just whenever we do these enrollment calculations, because it's not part of the official enrollment, we can't then submit it into the rezoning consideration. And that's not unique to this school. We have 7 different schools in the district that have CPI in them. And those seven schools, house students from the entire district. It's not to say that just because we only have 7 schools that have the CPI program, well, those other schools can't use the program. They still get to use the CPI program. They just have to be transported to one of the 7 schools that it is being offered. And this isn't unique to CPI either. We have CSEP classrooms throughout the district. Again, same as CPI, it's not at every single school, but similarly, that is a separate state program, so they aren't recognized as part of our official enrollment count. And while it doesn't affect this rezoning because CSEP's not in either of these schools, if we were doing a rezoning with a CSEP classroom, similarly, they would not be counted in our enrollment calculations. And again, because of the concerns that were addressed at the last meeting, since that presentation, we have had face-to-face meetings with Principal Taylor at BM Williams Primary School. And in those meetings, we also had elementary school leadership. And the purpose of that was to really take a fine look at the space available in the building and how these new numbers would affect it. And the way we did that was to focus, because it was our recommendation, on option one was the numbers that we focused on, and went through and looked at really how many rooms we would need to facilitate the number of students that we would have under option one. And we found a couple positives. Special education programs would very likely be reduced because with both schools going to K-5, you wouldn't have the exact same number of programs in there. Now, you know, programs related to K through 2 that were only in the primary school would be split between the two schools, and that's on top of the fact that we are reducing enrollment. So between those two things, we would likely have extra rooms available for the special education programs that we didn't before. Similarly, general education classrooms, again, the numbers are going down, so that at face value could open up some space. But also, I mentioned in the last presentation that 4th and 5th grade have a higher student to teacher ratio, meaning that you can put more students in every classroom for 4th and 5th grade than you can for those lower grade levels. So when you have a certain number of students at the lower grade levels, as they move up to 4th and 5th, they actually need less classrooms because we can put more students in each classroom space. And after going through that with the principal and elementary school leadership, we looked at how many portables we'd be able to reduce, and we think it would be as high as 8 of the portables at that school. Also on top of that, Principal Taylor did a really good job over the last year of moving all of the general ed classrooms into the building. So already we're really only focusing on resource rooms outside, and this process will just continue even better. The 3 non-CPI portables that would still be out there would all just be resource. All the rest of the main classrooms would be inside the building at that point. And a bonus perk of this is that the 8 portables that we'd be looking to remove are all portables that are taking up space that could be used for parking. We know that that's an issue at that building a lot of the time, so it's just sort of a side benefit to getting rid of those portables, is that space would be able to use for parking. All right, so our outreach started after the first presentation. We posted the details of these 3 rezoning options to the school's webpage. And tomorrow, after this presentation, we'll be putting out our community survey. That'll stay open until the evening of January 24th. It will close at 11:59 p.m. For our meetings, we have tonight our first public hearing and work session. And we just recently got a schedule for upcoming faculty update meetings. And this is important because we don't want the staff to be left in the dark. We want to keep them updated as the process goes along. That's going to start with, planning's going to run through the rezoning process with them, especially for the folks at BM Williams. We're going to have new construction, go and talk to them and let them know exactly what are the facility improvements that we're going to give them over the course of the summer. HR is going to go and speak with them and let them know how the staffing transition is going to work for the 2 schools. Warehouse is going to see them and let them know how the actual physical move is going to occur. So the goal of that over the next couple months is just going to be keep them updated so that there's less concern over how is this going to affect us, and we can keep them informed. And then because the survey's closing on January 24th, we thought that was a good opportunity then. We didn't have anything scheduled for the January 30th school board meeting. We want to come and give you the feedback that we get from the community over the course of that survey. And the added benefit to that is it gives you as board members a little bit extra time to digest whatever feedback we get and be better informed on your decision for whatever option you choose in the final vote, which is still scheduled for February 10th. Our second public hearing, work session, and then requesting a vote on final action for the chosen rezoning options. So implementation, we still are on schedule to complete construction over the summer, in which case we'll be doing the rezoning and opening for next school year, the 2025-26 school year. At which point all affected students, in this case being all current K through 4 students in the existing school zone, as well as incoming kindergarten students, will be affected by this and will have to attend the school for which they are zones. Current 5th grade students will not be affected. They'll attend the same middle school they're already going to be attending. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Hang on one second. Mr. Pope, I do want to add just a very small footnote. You touched on it, but I think it's helpful. And again, it's only a small microcosm of this very challenging thing that we're working through. But I think it's just important to put a footnote on that. Your staff, the operations staff with Ms. Stutz, is also working with Principal Taylor and others to make sure that not only are we doing the best that we can with these bigger decisions, but that we're also taking a very, very, very careful look at the utilization of every space on that property to make sure that as we look at what a new population looks like K through 5, because there are some differences there in what, general population will be serving, but are we doing things as efficiently as we possibly can? Are there restructuring in the current, classroom layouts? Are there other things that we can creatively do to use the space that we have as best as possible? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, that's, like I said, the meetings that we had with the principal so far are just starting and how we're going to communicate with the faculty. We have a schedule. I don't know if I clarified it perfectly that both BM Williams and Crestwood, we're going to have all those meetings with all the various departments involved with their staff. The staff will get a chance to have input, and we'll be working with the principals throughout the process. Like whenever we met with them, we were talking about classroom sizes for 4th and 5th versus K through 2, that certain rooms in B.F. Williams are better equipped to have the older children in there than the younger children. So that's just preliminary stuff. Paige, if anything to add?
Yeah, just further, we did walk the building, of course, with the principal. And as Alex noted, she's brought all the general ed inside. So quite honestly, the inside of the building is tight. They're using everything. There's no fluff, for lack of a better word. Resources are outside in portables. And of course, the CPI students are out in the trailers as well. There is one storage unit one trailer that's being used for storage at this moment. I'm on site as well. But we will continue to work with the principal. One thing, of course, for sure is we don't know the students who will be here because, particularly with kindergartners, it's we have nothing to go on. It's really is truly a guesstimate based on history because we don't have the information on the incoming kindergartners. That's always across the district when you have a kindergarten population. So we'll have to evaluate those students and determine what their needs are and what their programs are based on the zone that's approved. But yes, ma'am, we will continue to work with the principal and make sure we're utilizing the building as efficiently as possible.
Mr. Poole?
Thank you. My question, maybe it's clarification, but you said CPI and CSEP, although they attend at our schools, they use our facilities, maybe the cafeteria and all of our resources, but yet we don't count them. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my question is, if they're using what we use for all the children in the school, then how come we don't look at them as part of the solution or part of the problem per se based on the number of students who are in the school?
Well, with the state's official enrollment count, what we're looking at is funding per student. So because those two programs are funded from separate sources, they can't be considered in the official enrollment count page unit.
Yeah, Mr. Poole, we've never counted those students or CSEP students when we've done an attendance zone adjustment. Partly is this is a program that can be moved to other locations. Just like CSEP is a classroom that can be moved to other locations. In this particular instance with the 4 portables that are out there, they were designed actually for early adventures when the program was run by the Y before we took it over. They're portables, they have restrooms, they're designed specifically for preschool. And so our envision was that they would stay at that school and we would continue to use those portable classrooms.
To put it a slightly different way, we would essentially be double dipping if we counted them in both places because they are 2 separate funding sources, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sort of does, but they're still there, they're still impacting the number of students who can attend.
They are, but they're counted in a different program than they would be in the other. Dr. Walker?
Yes, I actually have quite a few questions, so bear with me. First off, thank you for clarifying from the last meeting because I went back and watched and I was like, no, he definitely said they were included. So thanks for that. Because I do think it's important we receive the correct information. But with that as well, I did want to clarify one thing you said this evening. You said that CPI uses the cafeteria and they use resources and things like that. And at BM Williams, unfortunately, that's not the case, or at least to my knowledge, it's not. It wasn't when I was there. And the reason for that is I think other CPI programs are able to use resources and their cafeteria, but the master schedule at BM Williams is so tight and the resources are spread so thin, they're actually not able to fit them in the master schedule. I know that the CPI teachers would probably love to be able to use some of those resources, but currently they're not able to. So just for transparency for board information, that's how it currently stands. I want to follow up on something one of our speakers said. Mr. Schutte said, looking at the, let's see, on the VDOE, he says that, and I haven't checked, I heard this from him tonight, but he says that the VDOE does include those students in the official enrollments from the state.
I haven't looked at what he mentioned either. I don't believe that's the official enrollment. I believe that's the profile. I don't know. I would have to look to see what they say.
Yeah, can we follow up on that maybe coming up for the next meeting? I would love to know more about that. I plan to look into that a little bit more myself too. Another question I have is, assuming that we're using the justification that CPI is a different funding source, is it true that ECSE is also not included in these numbers that were given? And if so, is there a reason for that? ECSE is the Early Childhood Special Ed program for the board.
They're included.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They're included.
They're included.
They are included already in the numbers. Okay.
Just to clarify, 72 students are in CPI. The ones that are in the preschool, in the building, they are included in the numbers. There are, to make it more complicated, but to make sure everybody's using the same numbers, there are 23 students that are out of zone. Those students are either attending school because their parent teaches there or because of special ed. We generally have that throughout the district where we do have out-of-zone students. So there are 115, 116 that they're counting is the 72 plus really the out-of-zone, not the pre-K that are being housed inside.
Okay.
Well, I would also say too, especially in terms of pre-K, obviously because their intermediate school is 3rd through 5th, they have no pre-K right now. So that really brings down the number of pre-K that's at BM Williams because now those pre-K students are split between the two instead of all being at just BM Williams.
Right. Yes. Understood. Let's see here. I'm curious. I think that, just following up on, again, another speaker comment from tonight, I think that it makes a lot of sense to ask the question why the preschool students are included in former CIPs and not necessarily included in this calculation, and like just clarify kind of what the difference is there.
I wasn't here when those.
They're not. I mean, if you
Okay.
go and look at the number that's in the capital plan, in fact, I looked at it just to make sure, it does not include CPI numbers.
In
And
the
it notes
CIP.
that 4 portables are being used for CPI, but the enrollment number in there does not include CPI.
Yeah, I've been doing the enrollment numbers the whole time that I've been with the district, and we've never included them since I've been here.
Okay. And then, obviously, very happy to hear that we're working with school leadership because the principal input, I think, is super valuable. And so just kind of want to blatantly ask this question too. Principal Taylor feels comfortable with the proposal and being able to make BM Williams work comfortably for the students and staff with the proposed option?
Yeah, she seemed very comfortable that we can make this work. Like I said, even before this year and before the rezoning stuff came through, she did a really good job of getting all of the general ed classrooms into the building and not having, say, a first grade class out in a portable with every one of those students. And what's there now is mostly just resource classrooms. And with the reduction in enrollment and programs and everything, that's only going to continue. I mean, when we say that we sat down with her and went through this, we went through room by room, not even just like wing by wing. We went room by room and said, what would this room be? What would that room be based off of the numbers that we're looking at in our presentation here? And she seemed more than comfortable with, if we went down to just those 3 remaining portables, that they would be comfortable with space inside the building. Now, again, that would still be leaving the other 4 for CPI,
Right.
but at least all of the main educational programs would be in the building, and like tutoring would be one of the things that she'd have out there. And she seemed very comfortable with the setup that we had looked at.
Okay.
Dr. Walker, just to add, when we went through the layout again, and I guess it depends on the numbers and depends on where the special ed shakes out in kindergartners, but she did end up having we expect she'll have some empty classrooms within the building. That being the case, it is a possibility she could move those CPI students inside. But I don't want to commit to that until we really find out what numbers we have.
Right. Yeah, and I know CPI requires a lot of space because they have all the, the cots for their naps, and they just, they require a lot of space, and those portables are well equipped for that. Okay, and then just a couple more things. You mentioned SPED programs reduced. When you say programs, are we talking because I know when I was there, and it might be different now, but we were one of the only elementary schools at the time that serviced all categories of special ed. Does that mean that maybe they won't service certain categories of SPED anymore, and maybe Crestwood would service some of them? Are we talking about removing entire programs or just reducing SPED enrollment?
I think we have to see how the numbers shake out. But as an example, if she has 4 early childhood, we really anticipate maybe 2 would go to Crestwood, as an example. I mean, I don't know how many ED she has off the top of her head, but as an example, we do expect the numbers to go down. And it may end up being, she might get 2 more of one, but get 1 less in some other category. So it really depends on the students and their needs, what their IEP says, and then we'll go from there. But we do anticipate, just by sheer the fact that the numbers are less, and the other building will be a K-5, we should be able to spread out the special ed a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. I'm encouraged to hear that it sounds like Principal Taylor feels like there will be extra space inside the building. Just to echo what Ms. Dean said in our last meeting, I also view portables as a large safety concern, and honestly just not the best experience for our kids, especially our little kids. And, coming into this meeting tonight, respectfully have to disagree that I didn't really think there were a lot of great options presented, but I am encouraged to hear that. And I think I would still personally love to know if there was a way to reduce the burden on BM Williams a little bit more, if that was an option. That would be my personal preference, to see if there's anything we can do, just because while I understand the need to prioritize growth, I also have a hard time prioritizing future families over current families and what we're currently looking at. And I have a hard time supporting anything that I feel leaves BM Williams in a position where they're going to be, on paper, technically under capacity, but we know what that building's capable of and the resources that they have. So in theory, because things are different on paper versus in practice, I think in practice they're still over capacity. So thank you, though. I think that answers all my questions, but that is kind of my personal opinion, is I would love to see a little bit more relief for them and some options. Thank you.
Mr. McCormick?
Thank you. I have a few additional questions. I know you're getting peppered with questions today, so I think you probably came prepared knowing
Yeah,
that you have a lot. One is, I mean, but these are both kind of centered around the same idea. I think Dr. Walker covered a lot of the questions that I had, and you helped clarify it, so I appreciate that. The imbalance between Crestwood and BM Williams in the different options, you know, the imbalance being in favor of Crestwood primarily because of future development. So question one is there pending or active development that this is based upon? Do we know those numbers, or is this just a speculation?
I don't know the exact numbers. I know there have been attempts to get a pretty large residential development approved on that side. I don't believe anything's active at the moment, but it's just BM Williams' side is a lot more densely populated already, whereas there's a fair bit of open space on the Crestwood side. So just, you know, looking at it generally in that way we don't want to get into a position where we're 5 years down the road and some application that hasn't been submitted yet is approved, and now we're right back to overcrowding at Crestwood, and that's a higher danger there than it is at BM Williams.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I'd like more information on this at our next meeting, because it's different between land that would need to be rezoned and land that's already been rezoned and ready to build. If there's land that's already been rezoned residential or, you know, for apartments, mixed use, whatever it is, and we know it's ready to build, or it's already by right able to be built, those numbers would certainly factor into an imbalance. But if it's land that would need to be rezoned, I don't think I don't think that should impact our numbers, because it would be really up to City Council to determine whether to rezone it at that time. And we need to plan for what we have right now, not on the speculation of will this property be rezoned from, you know, agricultural to residential or whatever it might be in order to make it developable. So I would like to know what amount of land is ready to be built. It's already been rezoned, or there's already been applications that have gone through that have been approved that would impact those numbers, as opposed to just raw land that would need to go through that process. And then in that, I just wanted to kind of make a comment. This isn't necessarily a question, but I would presume that a modern building that houses the same capacity is better equipped to serve those students than, you know, decades-old building that has a similar capacity, where you're kind of making it work in today's classroom versus what it was built for originally. So even if we're comparing, you know, apples to apples and the same size building, the same size capacity, but decades apart, I think a modern building is probably going to serve those students better. But it seems like the numbers are still imbalanced in favor of Crestwood keeping that capacity down, which is concerning. So I think, just echoing Dr. Walker's concerns, I would like to see an option 4 that even makes it more balanced, or brings the numbers, if it's even possible, to more in alignment, rather than favoring Crestwood based upon, you know, what might be. But again, that could change if we know there's, like this happened with Chinham, because that's out where I live. When the new Chinham was built, there was already large major residential developments that were being rezoned or had been rezoned at that time. So it was built with that in mind to sustain that capacity. And that's what I'd like to know for Crestwood. Is that in play? Do we have, you know, hundreds of houses that we know are going to be built over the next 5 to 10 years, but you know, we're just waiting for that to happen. So I would like that information if possible.
Okay.
Ms. Scott?
Yes, thank you. Well, first, I want to acknowledge the speakers that spoke tonight. As an elected board member, I just want to assure you that constituent input is definitely weighed heavily in the decisions that I know that I make, and I think I can speak on behalf of probably many board members that feel the same way about that. So thank you for your feedback. I also want to speak to the administration, and I want to thank you for the hard work that you've done on this. I think tonight, listening to the answers to the questions, it really is abundantly clear to me that this is a wildly complex issue. It is an undesirable issue, and that there aren't a lot of great options. I mean, even looking, at option 1, 2, and 3, and as John McCormick just asked, maybe we can get an option 4 in there. It is a very difficult situation, and I greatly respect the work that y'all have been putting into this. I don't think that there's a nefarious intent behind the numbers. I'm understanding the answers to the questions that we've been getting tonight about why numbers are done a certain way. It's complicated, but I understand what you're saying. I wish that we had a magic wand that we could, make things different. But thank you for your hard work, and thank you to the people who spoke tonight. I appreciate your feedback.
I don't see any additional questions at this time, so thank you, Mr. Pope, and we will continue to explore this at the next meeting. We will now move on to the action agenda. The first item is the appointment of board representatives. Annually, board members are appointed to various bodies where the board member represents and acts on behalf of the school board. A copy of these appointments is available in board docs for review. Are there any questions about the proposed appointments? Seeing none at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Walker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
The next item on the action agenda includes training opportunities from the VSBA. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. I would like to share information about 2 opportunities. The first one, the Virginia School Boards Association is going to provide training. It's an orientation for newly elected school board members. This will be on January 28th in Richmond. If there are any board members who would like to attend, please raise your hand. All right, I have Ms. Huddle. The next opportunity is the VSBA is also hosting the Capitol Conference, and this conference will be held in Richmond on January 27th and 28th. Are there any board members who would like to attend this opportunity? Okay, seeing none, I will need a motion to approve the attendance of Ms. Huddle.
Motion made by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Poole. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members voting yes.
We will now move on to the superintendent's report. Over to you, Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just want to remind everybody that we're celebrating Virginia School Principals Week this week, January 13th through the 17th, 2025. Our principals do an incredible job serving our students and staff each and every day. So we'll be celebrating them this week, and I know the board joins me in thanking them for all that they do each and every day. I want to remind everybody that we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day on January 20th. All schools and offices will be closed during that time. I'm also looking forward to traveling to Richmond with many of you when we are meeting with members of our Chesapeake delegation on January 22nd in Richmond. This is a great opportunity for the board to discuss our legislative priorities with our representatives. Also, want to remind everyone in the community and the public that the joint meeting with the City Council that was originally scheduled for January 23rd has been canceled. Just want to make sure everybody is aware of that change to the calendar. With that, I'm happy to move on to the Superintendent Spotlight Report, and a Happy New Year. I hope everyone had an opportunity to celebrate the season with family and friends, and to also hopefully get some much-needed rest over the winter break. I'm happy to share some exciting events that took place across the district during the month of December, as well as celebrate accomplishments of our students and staff. First up, I'd like to officially welcome our new school board members, Elijah Colon and Malia Huddle. Congratulations, you almost made it through your very first meeting. We congratulate both of you for being recently elected. We also want to congratulate our re-elected board members, Angie Swigert and Norman Poole. It was an honor to hear from each of you and to visit with your families at the formal oath of office ceremony that was held here on December 13th. We look forward to working with you as we serve the students, teachers, administrators, staff, and families of Chesapeake Public Schools. The Chesapeake Public Schools Educational Foundation provided a holiday surprise for some of our teachers. Just before winter break, the foundation surprised teachers throughout the district with over $38,000 in grants to sponsor and support their innovative educational programs. The teachers received funds for their new and creative instructional efforts, including STEM programs, reading materials, drones, journalism equipment, and other school projects. Thank you to our teachers for continuing to find new, creative, and innovative instructional methods for our students, and an even bigger thank you to the Chesapeake Public Schools Educational Foundation and our Title I federal programs for funding these outstanding opportunities in our district. Take a look at some of our winners.
That is awesome. Thank you very much.
I have my list already on my table.
It was great to see how excited our teachers were, but the students were also excited, I have to tell you, based on all the reports I've heard. Our school district recently received its own holiday surprise thanks to Dollar Bank and Dick's Sporting Goods. Mr. Dave Paradise, Senior Vice President of Dollar Bank, presented the Chesapeake Public Schools Educational Foundation with a $10,000 check in support of science education at our middle schools and a student achievement efforts at Oscar Smith High. Dick's Sporting Goods in Greenbrier awarded Deep Creek High School with the $5,000 Sports Matter grant in support of their athletic programs. Thank you to Dollar Bank and Dick's Sporting Goods for their generosity and their continued support for our students here in Chesapeake. Oscar Smith High School traveled to Harrisonburg, Virginia on December 14th and came home as the VHSL Class 6 football champions. The Tigers defeated James Madison High School 21-20. It was a nail-biter with a thrilling comeback victory to capture the school's 5th state championship and complete an undefeated season. Congratulations to the Tigers, the student athletes, and the coaching staff on an amazing season. We are proud of you and your accomplishment. Another special day for the Tigers occurred just before the holidays with their International Baccalaureate graduation ceremony. Our IB students from the class of 2024 returned to Oscar Smith High School for the awarding of their IB diplomas and certificates. These students completed a rigorous course of study and completed comprehensive exams in order to earn the distinction of IB graduate. Thank you to Principal Paul Joseph and Oscar Smith High for hosting our graduates and their families, as well as the Oscar Smith Orchestra and Chorus for performing. Congratulations to our 2024 IB graduates. Finally, as part of Computer Science Education Week, we participated in an innovative learning program with the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code is a nationwide initiative dedicated to introducing students to computer science and hopes to inspire a new generation of learners. Across the district, schools spent their Hour of Code learning how to control robots with their Chromebooks, how to use code to fly drones, and other ways that computer science is used and applied in everyday life. Thank you to our teachers and our schools for giving our students the opportunity to learn about new technology and opening the door for new passions and pathways. Madam Chair, members of the board, this completes my spotlight for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. Last on our agenda this evening is board member items. Does any board member have an item to bring before the group? Ms. Scott?
Thank you. It's actually just more of a comment, a couple of things. One, I'm sad that the people that were here earlier aren't here anymore because I wanted to, again, just express my appreciation for the amount of people that came tonight to weigh in on policy and what matters to them. I especially appreciated seeing jazz hands. I haven't seen that in a long time. It was a bit nostalgic for me. I also want to congratulate Mrs. Rittenauer, who is sitting in the audience tonight, and her beautiful baby boy. I can tell from where I'm sitting that he is perfect. So congratulations. I loved all the grunts and the noises. I think you're an amazing mom, and I'm so happy for your family that's growing. And I was jealous of your friend holding your baby. throughout the meeting. I was going to volunteer. And then I also, Girls Incorporated, though they're not here to hear my comments tonight, I so appreciate when they attend board meetings, and I so appreciate what they're doing for the kids in our district. I mean, to hear that they've gone from $14,000 in scholarships to $30,000 in scholarships, and then these goodie bags that they're doing for the girls in our district that are growing up, and that's hard, you know, to be a developing young woman. And so I'm so grateful for them. Every time I see them here, they make me smile, and I'm so grateful for the partnerships. And then the last thing I was going to address is, you know, I appreciate the votes tonight to become vice chair, and whether you voted for me or against me, I just want you to know that I'm looking forward to us working together as a board for the greater good of our district. I think we have much more in common than not, and I trust that all of our hearts are in the right position, and I think Chesapeake Public Schools is going to thrive. So that's all.
Seeing no additional comments at this time, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.